Good morning. Good morning. I'm Bruce Goling. The program is Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. Today is the 7th of March. And today is significant because it's a day when thousands of our children have been able to go back to school, physically go back to school. Some of them been out of school for 2 years. Some of them were able to try to keep up through online classes, but there are many of them, thousands of them, who didn't have the facilities. They either didn't have the computer, the tablet, or if they had that, they didn't have the internet connection to be able to keep up. So that many of our students have lost 2 years. 2 years of schooling. And the challenge for them, the challenge for their teachers, and indeed the challenge for their parents, is how can they catch up? It's going to require hard work. It's going to require discipline. It's going to require assisting them with extra lessons and additional homework. Perhaps one of the things that we need to do is to look at the long summer holidays that they get, and we may have to use up some of those summer holidays to try to help them to make up the ground that they have lost. So I urge all of you, particularly the parents, your child's learning is as much your responsibility as theirs, as the teachers. And I'm urging them to pay close attention, stay close to what your kids are doing at school, stay close to the teachers so that you can get some guidance as to what you can do to help them to get over this bump, because it has been a bump. You know, a kid who should have gone from grade 8 to grade 9, after 2 years, is probably still in grade 8. 2 years older. So it's a huge challenge, but I wish them well. And I urge all the stakeholders to do all that they can to help them to get over this bump. I spent my very early years in a little country district called St. Faith's, near Browns Hall in the hills of St. Catherine. Like almost every country district at the time, it was a farming community, small farmers. They didn't have pickups. They used donkeys. They didn't have tractors. They used the fork and the hoe and the machete. Most of the people in the district were poor people. Not poor to the point where they had to beg, because they were proud people. And they worked hard enough to put food on the table. They grew their own food, raised a few chickens, a few pigs and goats, 1 or 2 cows. So they were not short of yam and banana and potato, vegetables, eggs, milk, meat. So they were able to feed themselves. And they were able to sell some of what they produced to buy the other things that they needed. They lived in modest little dwellings, board houses. We didn't have piped water and electricity. So we had to catch water from the zinc roof, catch it and store it in drums. Or we had to fetch water from a nearby river. And we had to use kerosene lamps. We didn't have anything to plug anything into. We didn't have radio or television, so we amused ourselves, playing cricket with bats made out of coconut bough, or hunting birds in the bushes with our slingshots. But there were some characteristics of that district that were fascinating. We were not just a district, we were a community. What do I mean by that? We loved each other. We cared for each other. Everybody was ma something or miss something. And that love and caring was manifested in how we helped each other. There were some persons in the district who were old and sick, didn't have anyone to look after them, but the community looked after them. When a family cooked dinner, it would cook a little extra to send for another person who wasn't able to cook for himself or herself. And we had it organized down to a T. So one household knew that it would send something for Miss Laura on Tuesday. Another family knew that they were to do so on Wednesday. So Miss Laura never went to bed hungry. There was a tradition in that farming community called sport. And I'm not talking about cricket or football or tug-of-war. It was an arrangement where the farmers would give up a day to go and work on somebody else's farm, to do the planting or the weeding. All that farmer had to do was to put on a kerosene pan of soup. So this week it would be my cultivation. Next week it would be yours. That is how we lived. If someone died, everybody would get together to help dig the grave. And of course, there was always a bottle of white rum there to keep the digging going. That is how we lived. That spirit may have been biblically inspired. In Galatians 6, we are admonished to bear ye one another's burden. And in 1 Corinthians 13, St. Paul says, and now abideth faith, hope, and charity. But the greatest of these is charity. Essentially, though, I believe that this spirit emanated first from a sense of dependence and then from a sense of togetherness. I believe that in this journey of life, with all its challenges and difficulties, we're all in this thing together. Our conscience commanded us to reach out and help others who may be in need or who may be in distress. We didn't do that for reward or publicity. We did it to satisfy our own conscience. We did it because it was our God-given duty to do it. Times have changed, and the spirit of loving, caring, helping doesn't seem to be as prevalent, doesn't seem to be as instinctive as it used to be. There's still the need. There are many persons today in distress, many persons who have been left behind. There are communities that have gone astray and are in need of upliftment and regeneration. But where is the love, the sense of caring, the altruism, the togetherness? Has that been turned back by the individualism and selfishness that seem increasingly to be what defines the values of our society? The social sciences have named it volunteerism. That part of our social capital that doesn't come out of government budget but comes from our hearts. It is an important part of our social existence because no amount of government expenditure, limited as it always will be, but even if it was available in abundance, no amount of government expenditure, no amount of social welfare services can fill the space or provide the urgent response that is needed when someone is in distress or needs assistance. That is when the brotherhood of man must trip in. Today we are discussing the spirit of volunteerism in Jamaica, and we'll be talking with some eminent persons who are involved and some who have dedicated much of their lives to the endeavor of helping others and organizing people to help others. How are they managing? What response are they getting from ordinary people, from people like you and me? What obstacles are they encountering? How can we restore the ethos that I experienced as a child growing up in St. Faith's in St. Catherine, when we were all family, even if we were not blood related? That is what we want to discuss today, the spirit of volunteerism. And I'm pleased to welcome to the program my first guest for today. She is the Chief Executive Officer of United Way, Mrs. Chauvel Cunningham. United Way is one of the premier organizations involved in mobilizing volunteers and providing voluntary service in so many important areas. And I want to welcome Mrs. Cunningham to the program. Mrs. Cunningham, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. You actually have Stephanie Coy. I'm Stephanie Coy, the Chief Executive Officer for United Way. Mrs. Cunningham is our board chair.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
No problem.
My apologies.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, you are as good, I'm sure. Tell me, United Way, give us a sort of broad description as to the work that United Way does.
Well, United Way has been in existence since 1985. Our vision is a society where all individuals and families can achieve their human potential. We focus on education, financial stability, and health. And our mission is to mobilize resources to transform lives throughout Jamaica. And so we have been working with individuals, corporate entities, to raise monies that we can in turn assist those in need.
To what extent is the execution of your program dependent on volunteers?
Oh, a large extent. And the willingness of persons to contribute. We have a large workplace philanthropy program which sees over 5,000 persons contributing to the efforts of United Way through workplace giving. And that really does help to create an impact when we work with early childhood institutions, assisting them to meet the ECC requirements. And we did contribute heavily to the COVID response. And we also have projects with the JAS where we work with men and women doing agricultural enterprises. And also even for corporate entities, they have really pitched in and have worked with us to contribute towards realizing a better Jamaica.
But that sounds like you need a large staff to administer those programs. What sort of staffing do you have?
Well, we actually have a very small staff. A lot of the work we do are also supported by volunteers that give us their time. So we have a board that comprises 26 persons, and we have subcommittees that have a number of volunteers on there that give us their time and technical expertise to ensure that the work that we do is one that can speak to impact and accountability and transparency.
How do you go about mobilizing those volunteers? I mean, if somebody, for example, has a particular skill or particular experience that would be of value in the programs you administer, how do they go about becoming involved, and how do you facilitate and engage them?
It depends. From time to time, we do have persons that will make contact via our website, as well as they will call us directly. They may engage some of our board members that they are familiar with, and we also have an active social media presence. So from time to time, persons will reach out to us there. We are now in the process of actively seeking to engage young persons, especially, to see how we can get them to contribute of their time and their technical expertise, especially as it relates to graphics, communications, and supervision of our projects.
What has the response been like?
The response has been mixed.
Let me strip the question down.
Yes.
Are people really keen? I mean, people have their lives to live. They have their own challenges and so on. Are you finding that people are really keen to spend quality time to go and engage in helping out in a basic school, or helping out with a health project, or a family counseling kind of effort? Is that spirit still alive, or does it need resuscitation?
Well, I guess we're fortunate enough that we, maybe because of what we do meet those persons who want to give back. And so that really encourages the staff here, because we realize that we're not in it alone. There are a number of persons, both locally and in the diaspora, that not just want to contribute money, but also they're willing to give of their time, whether it is a school reading program, a homework program, they're willing to contribute, and they will say to you, okay, I can give you 1 hour. That is the time that I have per month that I can give. How would you like to utilize that? And so we also, in respecting that they have their lives, as you mentioned, we try, if we're having a meeting or an event, that if they have committed to the 1 hour, we seek not to go over.
Do you find that when they come forward, do you find that their enthusiasm is sustained, or do they become overwhelmed sometimes by the enormity of the challenges that you have to work with every day and say, boy, I can't manage this?
Sometimes it depends, because if you've been doing it for some time, sometimes you may feel that, it's a struggle that you just don't seem to be able to win. But I think what oftentimes gives them that extra momentum and that extra gas to keep going is then when they see the impact that it has made, when you can see that child that is happy, when you can see that child who has now graduated, and you know that the work that you have done is not in vain. So we have persons that have been consistently involved now for over 10 years.
Well, you touched on something that I was going to ask you about, and that would have been, to what extent do you monitor and evaluate the work that you do to see whether or not you're achieving the objectives that you expected? In other words, whether you're wasting your time.
Well, a large part of what we do, we have a committee that is our Programs and Technical Assistance Committee, and that is one of the outputs of that committee, where we look at the projects and programs that we're funding, because we provide support to local NGO organizations. And we examine whether we have made an impact or if we're making an impact, and to determine if we need to tweak what it is that we're doing. We're currently in a phase also where we are growing and where we are seeking to improve our monitoring and evaluation, because as with any company, one of the things that we seek to do is to grow and to develop. So as modalities change and as techniques change, we're seeking to embrace that as well. One of the things that we need to engage, and we'll be looking for volunteers to do this, is a survey, because we would like to assess of the students that we have funded, because we have two large corporate entities that support tuition assistance for persons going to universities, is to understand what is the impact that has been on their lives and where they are today. So it is a continuous process for us, because we have to ensure as an NGO that we are making an impact, and that is a mantra for United Way, to ensure that we have accountability and transparency.
Do you do any do you do any training of volunteers? Let me tell you where my mind is going on with that question. There's a limit to what programs you are able to handle at any particular time. No limit both in terms of funding, in terms of administrative capability. But there may be thousands of persons, ordinary persons, that don't have no university degree. They live in communities. There is a need in the community for intervention. Small scale at the community level. Is there a program, do you do any sort of training of people so that outside of your specific programs of assistance, these are persons who would have been trained, they know how to assess a situation, they know how to mobilize even at the community level, what little resources may be available. In other words, I'm just trying to see if we could build up a whole army of people out there. They're there already, you know, but I'm just wondering whether or not if we had a program where they could be trained, how much more effective they could be. Do you have any such program?
We don't particularly have a program that we execute like that. However, what we do is through our Programs and Technical Assistance Committee is that when we're working with a local NGO and we assess that there is a gap in technical capacity, we work with them to improve that capacity. And if it is something that we cannot give assistance to, then we would work with one of our other partners, such as the Social Development Commission, or if it is a group that is an agricultural group, then the JAS, or you also have the CVSS, to which we are also a member. So we seek to see how we can partner, because unfortunately we can't be everything. But where we identify a need, we see how we can assist them in resolving that.
Is there a register? Does a register exist anywhere where we could find all of the NGOs across Jamaica? Is there such a thing?
I believe the Social Development Commission would have such a listing.
And of course, these would cover the whole gamut of, some of them would have specific focus in terms of, you know, environment and so on. But some of them may be just community organizations that want to make a difference. And I'm just trying to see if we can find a way to empower them, to facilitate them some more.
There is also, because to be registered, well, you'd have to be registered, and you are registered with the Companies Office of Jamaica, so a listing would also be there, as well as the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Society. They also would have a listing, and they also provide training from time to time.
How many projects do you have currently ongoing across the island?
We have currently 15 projects.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We work a lot with our early childhood institutions.
Do these projects have an entry and an exit, or these are projects that you have to live with?
It varies. So we have some which are long-standing. For instance, our Nannyville Basic School, that we have a corporate entity, 3M, that has adopted that basic school. So that's an ongoing project. And then we have those that will write to us, and it may be a short-term or one-off, which may be 1 month, or it may extend to 9 months. It depends on the nature of the activity.
What's the level of local and international financial support that you're able to draw on? I mean, when I say the level, I mean, are there both local and external sources of funding?
Yes, we have a lot of local support, and we also have support from the diaspora as well as international funding agencies.
Is it easy to access international funding? By international funding, I'm talking about from the multilateral agencies and so on.
Well,
I'm just asking how many hoops you have to jump through.
Well, not anything more than would be expected. For instance, we recently applied for and we were awarded funding support from the USAID for a project that we will be doing in Effortville. So the requirements are similar to any other entity applying. One of the things which is the benefit of a United Way applying for funding like this and then working with the local civil society organization is that for some local civil society entities, they may not be able to meet the rigor and requirements of the International Funding Agency. And so that is the value of a United Way to the entire process and helping to work with the local entities.
But I'm sure that you have to go through a whole lot of paperwork to do that.
Yes, which again, as I say, is part of the process we understand in terms of ensuring accountability and transparency.
In terms of your programs for the immediate future, any new area of focus, or you're going to sort of maintain your current portfolio?
Well, our portfolio, education, health, and income generation, we will maintain. We will broaden. This year is the year of early childhood development, and so we'll be working with the ECC to see how we can support initiatives in that area. We are also still working with the Jamaica National Children's Home. As you know, the home was affected by fire in 2019, and so we're working with the Methodist Church to see how we can do the restoration of the home. And we have a project that we're working on with the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. And so we will continue with those as well as any other COVID response and relief assistance that is needed. And we are still working with the Jamaica Agricultural Society with our income generating projects, where we are working with 100 persons, females primarily, and persons with disabilities, with a beekeeping project and forestry.
These income generating projects, they're what? The focus is what? Training or financing?
The focus, we provide them with financing as well as training. So they receive training as to how to successfully execute a business in beekeeping. So they get training in beekeeping as well as beekeeping as a business, because the business aspect of it is one of the things that we seek to focus on as well, because they have to understand how to operate what they're doing as a business and what is required for them to be able to grow and to sustain the operation.
Very good. Let me congratulate you. And I know a little bit about the work of United Way even before I came on, and I think you're doing a tremendous job. So let me congratulate you. Let me urge you to continue. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to the persons who are listening who would like to volunteer. And one of the big things for us is for persons to give, advocate, and volunteer, because we believe in living united.
How do they get in touch?
They can visit our website at www.uwjunitedwayofjamaica.org. We're also on Instagram. Our handle is United Way of Jamaica, and they can call us at 922-9424-7.
Good. Thank you.
And they can also email us at info@unitedwayofjamaica.org.
Well, I hope a lot of people who may be listening will respond. Jump in. We all have to give a hand. Thank you so very much. Good afternoon once again. This is Jamaica Live. We're on the bridge. Just a little after the top of the hour, we're going to be linking with Irish Jam in New York. Today we're talking about volunteerism, the spirit of giving back, the spirit of sort of stepping out of ourselves and helping others, and doing it not because we get any reward, not because we won't get any national honor, not because we're going to see our picture in the papers, but doing it out of love. It is part of what sustained us, in the old days, coming out of slavery. When the slaves got their freedom and they took off into the hills because they weren't prepared to accept any employment on the plantations where they were held in bondage, and they went up into the hills and created their own little communities. That's how they lived. That's how they survived. They couldn't have done it in a selfish way. They had to do it together. They had to do it holding hands, helping each other. The stronger helping the weaker. And when the stronger get weak, then they turn around and help him too. That is how we developed as a society, as a country. And that's what we're talking about today. We're going to be joined now by two people, young people, I'm pleased to announce. Miss Omolora, I hope I have that right, Wilson, who is at the University of the West Indies, Faculty of Social Sciences, and a youth leader, and Miss Garthia Gowan, Communications Director of the Rotaract Club of St. Andrew. Can I welcome you both to the program? Hello.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me to the program.
Who do I have now?
So this is Garthia.
Hi,
and
Garthia.
I'm actually currently the Vice President for the Rotaract Club of St. Andrew.
Very good. And is Miss Wilson on as well?
Yes, I am, Dr. Golding. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good. Thank you so much. Tell me something. I remember some years ago, Professor Don Robotham gave the Grace Kennedy lecture on the subject of volunteerism. And he posed the question, is volunteerism in Jamaica dying? Now, this was a long time ago. This was, late 1990s, I think 1998. That is 20-odd years ago. I put the question to you, because you either weren't born at that time or were just little tiny tots. Is the spirit of volunteerism in Jamaica, is it on its sick bed, or is it something that is alive and well?
I'd like to tackle this question first.
Go ahead.
I don't think volunteerism itself has died in Jamaica. I think what it is the passion behind it. The spirit, indeed, it's dying. And the reason why I believe so is that we're doing voluntary work. We're doing it all, but we're doing it for the wrong reasons. We've moved away from where we see it and we give it with love, spirit above, give it a willing heart. So let me give it, and hopefully somebody knows that I gave it, and so it will bring some sort of congratulations or well done or a pop on your collar. And then in its way, it loses its substance, because the whole purpose of volunteerism is that you're doing it because you have the passion, the zeal, the will to help, and it's not some selfish motive. So I believe that is where we're scarred right now when it comes down to voluntary work in Jamaica.
Who is this, Garthia or Omolora?
No,
This is Omolora.
Okay. Garthia, what's your view?
I agree with Omolora. I think we definitely need to improve on the passion. But I'm thinking that maybe we could invest in persons in terms of how do you help persons to have a passion? Because people, you know, they might have different things that they're interested in, but they don't know that they can actually direct their passion towards a service organization.
Let me ask
So
you.
I think,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Finish your point.
so I think probably just fostering the growth or just helping persons to realize that passion, that's something that we could also work on. So I really love what Omolora said in terms of the passion for volunteerism is dead. And that's something that we can look on. How do we help persons to realize that passion?
Let me ask you both a question. When I was your age, when I was growing up, life was not bed of roses. But, you know, I went to University of the West Indies, for example, and my parents didn't really have no great stress in paying the little tuition fees. At that time, I believe, per term, it was at that time we were operating on 3 terms, not the 2 semesters you have now. But at that time, I can't remember. I think the fees were something like £10 a term or something like that. And my father was able to pay that and never sneezed.
Oh, wow.
When I graduated, I got married pretty young. I got married at 24. But, you know, it wasn't long after that we were able to buy a house. Not a big everlasting house, but we could, you know, buy a house to raise a family. A youngster nowadays, I mean, going to university, Jesus Christ, I mean, what the parents have to go through, and they themselves in terms of the student loan that they have to go sign up and accept responsibility for, then trying to buy even a little 1-bedroom apartment for a young graduate is almost an impossibility. The point I'm trying to make is that your generation is facing such a difficult time just trying to survive.
Yeah.
That, you know, they're so busy working to try and pay off the student loan. They're so busy hustling to try and see if they can save a little money to pay down on a little 1-bedroom something. It's not that they're selfish, you know, it's not that they're individualistic. But the times may be so challenging that it's really difficult for them to go find time to go down to the inner city community now to go help organize children. Is that a real problem, or am I exaggerating it?
So this is Garthia. I agree with you. Times have changed. It's much harder. It's a job in itself to survive here in Jamaica and everything. But I don't think anybody should ever be too busy to give back. When you give back to the community, it helps you personally, professionally. It helps you in so many different ways. So the time that you would take to actually give back out of your busy schedule, it's worth it. So I agree with you in terms of, you know, everything being different now, but at the end of the day, it's worth it to actually spend a little time. And there are different service organizations out there, so you don't have to be a member in the sense where you're there at every meeting. It could be a case where you just show up when there's an outreach project.
Well, bear in mind, you know, there are 2 types of volunteerism we're talking about. We're talking about the organized one, which is where you go through, you know, a service club, a United Way, an NGO. But there's what I think is an even more important kind of volunteerism, and that is where in your community, if you know that there's a little old lady in that community who can't help herself, but try to help her. I mean, that spirit, that kind of passion, you call it passion, and passion is a good word for it. But that sort of drive, the feeling that, look, I cannot really go to my bed and sleep comfortably if I know that there's somebody in need and I didn't make an effort, no matter how small or how humble it is, make a little effort to see if I could help them out. Is that part of our being, or is that part of what, technology and all the modern niceties of life has wiped out? Whichever of you want to take that on.
Okay, I want to take this on, Dr. Gowan. I believe that it is a part of us, this zeal or this feeling or this conscious speaking mind of yours to say, if I can do something, why not do it? If it is that there's someone lesser, the position is less than mine, and I want to make some sort of small donation. I might not have $1 million right now, but I have a $10, I have a bag juice. It gives you that motive to do it because it's what makes us human. This will to ensure that if we can, we do. The aim is to do if you are able to. And I feel as if that dwells within every single one of us. The problem is not that it doesn't dwell there. The problem is that we don't often capitalize on it. So not everyone will say, probably I'll be saying to myself, let me help this person. Let me see what I can do. While someone else will say, I really should help this person, but I have to put me first. And I might want to do something next week with the money, so I'm just not going to. So it's there within us because it's what makes us humans, this zeal to help others, this zeal to make sure that everyone is just as okay as I am. But do we capitalize on it? That is the issue at hand.
And you're not just talking about an ideal. You're saying that this is the mindset of your peers, of your generation?
I don't want to say it is the mindset of all. You understand me? But what we have started off with, and I want to keep it, is that volunteerism in Jamaica has somewhat died out. The zeal is still there, but the motive, the reason why you're doing it has changed in some areas.
So in other words, you have to incentivize it.
In a way, exactly.
I mean, in other words,
and I don't want it to be, Dr. Gowan, that we believe that everyone is like this.
No, I understand you. I understand you. But what you
significant amount of people who really help from that.
Yeah, but what you're saying is that in order to really get that kind of spirit to really come to the fore, the television camera will help. A nomination for the Prime Minister's Youth Award won't do any harm either. I mean, that's what you're saying.
Yes. The opportunities are there that motivates us to volunteer. It's not a bad thing either.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Because maybe what we ought to do
that motivates us to volunteer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because maybe what we ought to do is to make sure we kind of calibrate, or synchronize some of these. Forgive me for the word, sweeteners, in order to really stimulate that kind of effort. At the same time, we have to be careful, because the television cameras can't go into every little village in a mountaintop. We have to be careful that we don't discourage the people who do it out of the motivation that you speak about. Feeling that, if I'm not getting a little exposure, if I'm not getting a little kudos, then I won't bother, because there's so much that needs to be done.
Exactly.
And helping people. I have a lot of respect, you see, for anonymous donors. Because when I see somebody contribute, provided, of course, it's not dirty money, but when I see somebody contribute to, I've heard it, you listen to a call-in program and somebody calling, they're in distress, they need some help to get a particular kind of surgery done. And they've set up an account. And they're able to say, well, we got an anonymous donation of, $20,000. What these people are saying is that I'm not looking any recognition. I don't want anybody congratulate me. I just want to help. I just want to do something that someone in need can have a better chance at life. We have to be careful that we don't get to the stage where everything has to be incentivized, no? Would you disagree with me?
In terms of an incentive, it's pretty human of us to, want some form of praise for the work that we have done. But at the end of the day, it should come from a selfless place. So adding an incentive, I wouldn't even call it incentive. It could be a case where you create a platform to teach people or to show people that, hey, you can do this. I think I wanted to add to the point earlier. You had mentioned something about technology, and I think us young or our generation, we're consumed by social media. We'll be inside for the whole day, and we don't come out, so we don't really know what's going on in our communities. So I think social media can be your best friend, or it could be your worst enemy. In the sense where it consumes you, so you're not really sure what's going on. But I think we could also use it for good by showcasing what other persons have been doing in the community and, the impact that they have had. So I wouldn't really say incentivize, but to create a platform to show persons, what have been going on in the community, how they can help, because I think there's a small percentage of persons who don't know how they can give back to the community. So to actually show them how they can do that, then I think that would be good.
Well, we're up on the 1 o'clock break, and we have to leave it there. But I want to thank both of you, Omolora Wilson. Your mother gave you that name. She should have provided me with a pronunciation first, so I don't make mistake. Beautiful name, though. And Ms. Garthia Gowan. Thank you both very much for contributing to this discussion this afternoon, on the subject of volunteerism in Jamaica. We take the break. We'll be back. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We're going to be linking with Harry Jam in New York in a few minutes. We're talking today about volunteerism, the willingness to give back, the willingness to reach out, the willingness to help others. Is that an instinct that is dying? Are we still willing to do it in the way that certainly I saw when I was much younger, when I was growing up? And we've been talking with some people whose focus is mobilizing voluntary effort. And we have joining us today two very important guests. One is Ms. Saffrey, who is chairman of the Council for Voluntary Social Services, which is perhaps our leading organization in terms of mobilizing voluntary effort in an organized way. And we're also going to be joined by Ms. Alessandra Chung of the Jamaica Red Cross. The Jamaica Red Cross is one of our first responders whenever we have a disaster. But they don't have an army of people, so they depend a lot for the work that they are called upon to do, very often at short notice. So they have to be prepared to respond at short notice. They have to rely on volunteers. Ms. Brown, from Council of Voluntary Social Services, do we have you online?
Yes. Hi. Afternoon, Mr. Golding. Thanks for having me.
So wonderful to have you. And Ms. Chung from the Jamaica Red Cross?
Good afternoon, Mr. Golding.
How are you?
I am fine, thank you. And how are you?
I give thanks every day. Tell me now, both of you are deeply involved in voluntary effort. Are you frustrated in terms of mobilizing volunteers, or is it the challenges that motivate you to work even harder?
I am not frustrated. I continue to work, and I with all the challenges that we have, I've actually been a volunteer for the Red Cross from the time when I was going to Wilma's, and I'm now retired.
Ms. Brown, what is your experience? I mean, the CVSS, in terms of the work that it does, is it pushing up heavily laden truck up a hill, or is it sort of coasting on level ground?
I think it's a good question. I think that we have a situation where we have huge voluntary effort, but there are issues and there are challenges that curtail, prohibit, inhibit people's ability to volunteer. I think, with CVSS, with the umbrella organization for the voluntary sector, we've been around, we just turned 82 this year. And we have about 130 member agencies. Red Cross, Jamaica Red Cross is one, that are volunteer-led, right? So at the board level, at the community level, in terms of the work that they deliver, they're very much volunteer-led. And what we have found is that there are challenges for volunteers to be able to really provide fully. So, for example, I was listening to a conversation earlier about young people, and one of the things that we found is that there are barriers to volunteerism for young people. And so we have a responsibility at CVSS and those of us who are involved in promoting volunteerism to remove those barriers. And there are a number of them. Barriers could be economic barriers. People can't necessarily, especially when they're young, afford to pay, travel and buy lunch and these sorts of things. So you need to support them with those kinds of activities. By the time, you're working in your 30s and 40s, you can take care of those things. But also, one of the other challenges that we found is that the type of volunteering activities, many of them don't appeal to young people. And so volunteerism in and of itself has evolved. And we have organizations that have evolved with the times. We have new organizations that allow young people the opportunity. And then we have young people setting up their own organizations to be able to volunteer in the way that's important to them. And then there are other issues with voluntary-led organizations to do with technological deficits and just, this whole issue of aging out. And so there are a lot of situations around volunteerism that we have to look at how we support and strengthen. But I do think that Jamaica, and I've lived in a number of countries throughout my life, Jamaica has been the most civic-minded. It is the nation that looks for its own solutions as much as possible and tries to drive those. And what we have to do is create an atmosphere of support and an ecosystem that allows anybody to volunteer in the way that they want to volunteer. And I think that's what our strategy has to be moving forward.
Well, I'm very encouraged to hear that. I want to put a question to both of you. Say, in terms of the response you get, I mean, when you have projects, you see need. You need hands and minds to jump in. What is the response like today compared to what it was, say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Is it constant?
So I think from our perspective, I would say it's pretty constant, but I do think that the challenges are growing in terms of finding the right kind of volunteering opportunities that appeal to people. And I think, again, health and safety has become a much greater challenge these days. And, when you send a volunteer out, you have to make sure that they're safe and that that their transport is provided and all these sorts of things that come into play. And so volunteerism in and of itself is something that can require quite a lot of resources, right? And so, I mean, we don't have enough structured volunteer opportunities for the number of people that want to volunteer. But again, a lot of people volunteer in their communities. They do micro-volunteering, which is that, they see an opportunity, they go and do it, one afternoon for 1 hour. And then you have the volunteers, like a lot of the Red Cross volunteers, who, they're committed to the Red Cross and volunteer and work with the Red Cross for many months and years because they buy into their mission. And we just, again, we recognize that there is a demand for all those kinds of volunteerism. And no, I don't see it, from my experience, I don't see it waning.
Ms. Strong, what has been your experience at Red Cross? Is it?
I think it has been constant. I don't think it has, decreased. And in terms of young people, the Jamaica Red Cross actually has about 5,000 youth members. And those are persons between the ages of, say, 6 and, say, 23.
Do we have any programs within your organizations? I was hoping to have somebody here from the Social Development Commission. Unfortunately, that was not possible today. But do we have any programs to train people? What I have in mind, you see, what I'm trying to envisage is a situation where if we had a constant program to train people at the community level, how to go about providing voluntary service. Voluntary service is not just a matter of stepping out of the gate to go help somebody.
No.
It requires some kind of assessment of need and some kind of determination of what is the best way to help this person. Is it possible for us to just unleash a whole army of people right across the island who are in the community so that we have a response there, almost a CVSS, a Red Cross in the community, helping people in distress?
The Jamaica Red Cross has training programs that we have and that our volunteers are involved with. And at this point in time, there is a foot for the Jamaica Red Cross to develop. We actually have what are called community disaster response teams in various communities. Some are very active, some are not so active. We have a very active one in the Old Harbour Bay area right now. And so they are given different types of training, first aid, emergency response, shelter management, all those types of training, so that because the Jamaica Red Cross actually has branches in throughout the island. We actually have 13 branches because Kingston and St. Andrew counts as one. And so what we do is that in case of an emergency, you don't want to have somebody coming from Kingston to go to Westmoreland to deal with a disaster down there. And so once you train those people in Westmoreland, they can deal with the disaster in Westmoreland. If they need additional assistance, we will go into, because recently with the rains in St. Mary, what we had were persons from Portland and Kingston and St. Andrew going to assist the St. Mary branch of the Red Cross.
CVSS? Any sort of training programs?
Yes. So remember that CVSS is really, we do our work through our member agencies. So, for example, we've got the Uniformed Youth Clubs, which are the clubs that happen all across Jamaica for young people, right? So the Girl Guides, the Boy Scouts, the Brigade, the Cadets. We also have Jamaica 4-H clubs as members, and all of them are involved in youth volunteerism and training and development for youth volunteerism. So really what you're trying to do is this value system to the understanding and three, the sort of mechanism for how volunteerism can happen at a large scale, but also, as Ms. Chung said, at a very localized scale. And so by working through the Uniform Youth Clubs, the 4-H clubs, and the school service clubs, that is a great way to support the movement of that volunteerism from youth into community, into adulthood, into nation building. And so I think it's something that we should definitely be continuing to support as a nation, and ensuring that those structures within the schools very much continue to get the kind of support and resilience that they need. And we're finding out that a lot of them are not getting the support that they need, right? A lot of the uniform clubs, they've lost the funding. You know, many of them got their funding from international parent bodies. That doesn't exist anymore. And so their own ability to be able to deliver, programs that are rich and vibrant and full of sort of personal development and these sorts of things are being hindered. And it's something that locally we want to be able to strengthen and support. But that's an important part of what you're talking about, which is getting volunteerism to continue across the board and just become part of the fabric of our society. And I think it's there, Mr. Golding, but I do think that they need support. And I do think that we have to recognize that. And the other conversation you had earlier is this whole idea about people doing things without any recognition. And we have to remember, when we think that it's quiet out there, we have to recognize that a huge number of people do what they do very quietly. And so what we have found on the ground is that people are involved, people are engaged in their communities, they're actively making a difference. And yes, many of them we don't hear about, we don't talk about, but it's out there, and we just need to create that environment and that ecosystem for them to be able to do what they do.
How are you both managing in terms of financial support? Now, I know that you can never get enough financial contribution, but is the flow of contributions sufficiently predictable for you to plan your programs and execute them?
The flow of contributions is not always predictable, but we at the Red Cross, we recently had a telethon. We didn't make the target that we had, but I mean, we wanted to make $10 million, and that was supposed to be for specific programs that we had, but we reached about $5 million, and we are still. It also aided us in providing more publicity for some of the programs we were trying to get funding for, and this was like the School of Transformation, our meals program, as well as our community disaster response programs.
Can you just hold for me? Let me just welcome our New York partners into the discussion. Beauregard, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Golden.
We're talking about volunteerism today, and of course the diaspora is critical in this, because the diaspora has a kind of passion to help. I mean, they left Jamaica. They know what they left. They know that the needs exist. And many of them feel almost a sense of duty to help out, I can think of hospitals, clinics, schools that have benefited. Not to mention, of course, this is something that doesn't make it into the newspapers, not to mention the many people in the diaspora who contribute to the upliftment in their own communities where they came from. So I believe that it's a discussion that your listeners in New York and in the New York area would find to be a particular interest to them, because they're so much a part of this whole spirit of volunteerism. No?
Very true, Mr. Golden. And, we have to big up those people, who actually contribute and give back to our country of Jamaica, because they believe in the kids there in Jamaica. They know that there are kids there who are very passionate about the country, and if given the chance, they can express their ideas, and a lot of them have a lot of creative ideas that can actually benefit the people and benefit the country, and I believe that this generation is a very fearless generation, and they can lead and also be led, and when I say led in the terms of teamwork, there are a lot of them willing to work together to make the country a better place.
Well, we want to acknowledge the work that they do. We want to acknowledge the passion with which they make their contribution. And we want to mention to them the Council for Voluntary Social Services and the Jamaica Red Cross, because those are two important organizations through which they could make a real impact in terms of providing service, giving back to Jamaica. So thank you, Beauregard. What's the weather like up there now?
Well, normally it's around 30 or 40 degrees, but we're experiencing 50 and 60, so that's a good thing.
Oh, so you're back off the court.
Yes.
And that's good. All right, well, just hail up all the Jamaicans up there for me. Nice talking to you, Bo.
You too.
Miss Brown.
Yes, Mr. Golden.
Sorry, I had to bring you. You're being heard now throughout the whole New York area, because we link with them shortly after 1 o'clock every Monday.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
So
okay.
you have a diaspora audience listening to you.
Wonderful. Well, we do a lot of great work with the diaspora. We work with a great group out of the UK, and again, it's the same kind of thing, of making sure that we can provide the kind of support to the diaspora who want to volunteer. And, whether it is that they mobilize resources and items or whatever it is, a big part of our responsibility here is to make sure that we do proper reporting, accountability, that we're able to track everything and really report back to them. We have a responsibility to really report back to our diaspora partners around what their contribution has done, how it's been utilized. And I think that for us at CVSS is a key area that we're looking at in how we help improve the overall accountability and transparency when you do get donations and partnerships and these sorts of things, in terms of that monitoring and reporting, which I think is an area that continues to need strengthening. That buys into getting additional support, getting more people to volunteer, want more people to volunteer with you or with the organization or the work that you do. We really have to continue to improve on the accountability.
Have we improved the coordination? I mean, there are times when there's an outpouring, no? I mean, we have a major disaster, a hurricane or something, and the diaspora is just anxious to help, to send something, But even outside of that, if a Jamaican who is in New York or in Connecticut, New Jersey, have this. Most of them have this passion for back home, and they want to help. Is there a one-stop shop somewhere they can make contact and say, "Hey, I want to help," and be assured that they will get a positive response and that their efforts will be properly utilized? Have we structured that?
Well, I preface everything by saying that it absolutely needs strengthening and improvement. We are not where we would like to be. And, I think I would never say that diaspora would not have a challenge. Those in the know would know, and those who are not in the know would not quite know necessarily how to navigate their way around. What we do know, though, is that locally there are some key agencies that you can look at, key organizations, if you are looking to get involved, that can help mobilize through a network. So, for example, CVSS, which has our member agencies. Jamaica Red Cross is another mobilizer. Again, identifying where the gaps are and where the needs are. And sort of working through those mechanisms, I would say absolutely is the right way to go. But I do think we need to strengthen that. And I think, there are different efforts, especially when it comes from the government, to identify what the local needs are. And when COVID hit, there was very much this kind of listing that came out of the support that was needed for COVID response. And so when we, for example, CVSS worked with PSOJ and Red Cross was involved on the PSOJ COVID fund, we utilized that listing that came out of the government. So we were all working from the same sort of hymn sheet, so to speak, in terms of what we were all working towards. And so I think especially when it comes to disasters, making sure that we have that kind of, even if it's multiple agencies, that we're all working towards the same objective in terms of what the national needs are. But I do think in terms of that one-stop shop, we definitely need to strengthen on that. It's not where it should be.
Can I ask you both to bear with me? I want you to spend a few more minutes with me, but I do have to take a break. I'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We're talking today about volunteerism in Jamaica. The spirit of volunteerism. What is its state of health? Is it alive and well, or is it something that needs resuscitation? And we've been talking with Ms. Saffrey Brown, chairman of the Council for Voluntary Social Services, as well as Ms. Alessandra Chung, who is chairman of the volunteer membership of the Jamaica Red Cross. Ms. Chung,
yes, sir.
The Jamaica Red Cross, clear up our understanding on it. Is it an emergency response organization? Is it like the fire brigade that, if there's an emergency, you jump into action, and then once the emergency is over, you go back to the fire station to wait and to prepare yourself for the next call? Is that how it operates, or does it have...
No, Mr. Golden, the Red Cross is ever present throughout. It has a program of social welfare programs that it carries out throughout the year.
Tell us a little about it.
It also acts as an auxiliary to the government of Jamaica in times of disaster.
Yes.
And so that is why you might think that is the reason why you see us. But we also have feeding programs. We have we do first aid, we do home nursing, we trace persons. For example, if a U.S. serviceman wants to come for a funeral here in Jamaica, the American Red Cross makes contact with us. We have to find out when was and send back that information so he can get his leave to come here. So, there's a whole plethora of programs that the Jamaica Red Cross has.
So in other words, you're actually executing programs week in, week out?
Every day.
That's good.
We currently have a feeding program here in Kingston and St. Andrew, and we are feeding at least 105 persons, shut-ins, giving them a cooked meal every day, 5 days a week, and it is delivered to them at no cost to them.
And how much of that effort is done through employed staff as distinct from voluntary service?
We have, I would say, 3 persons that are employed. The rest are volunteers that assist with that program.
Good to know.
The driver is employed and the person that goes with the driver, because, there are some places where you can't park. And we have one person in the kitchen, and the rest of people who assist that person in the kitchen are volunteers.
Good. Ms. Brown.
Yes.
The coordination we were speaking of earlier before we took the break. Let us say that there is a group of Jamaicans in New York and in Brixton, in Toronto. Let us say that they all hail from a particular district, maybe in some rural part of Jamaica. And they all want to get together to say, now look, each of us go home to Jamaica every year, or go home at different times. This year, why we don't all plan our vacation at the same time? And let's go to Jamaica. And when we go, let us go build a classroom at the primary school, because we hear the primary school needs a classroom or need new sanitary convenience. Let us do that as our voluntary contribution to the district. Who do they call? Who do they get in touch with?
I mean, so I think there are a number of options. They could obviously call CVSS. They can call the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who would also direct them if it was any of the sort of government agencies to work through. They would have to work through the Ministry of Education, obviously, because once it's a school. But, it could be a partnership. It would be maybe CVSS, Ministry of Education, and the group, and we would look at helping them identify the local beneficiary, and just kind of helping to arrange and make the arrangements for that.
The reason why I'd posed a question about the coordination before is because I've got some complaints when I travel. I've got some complaints. They tell me the bureaucracy will kill them, will drive them crazy. The hoops that they have to jump through. And these are persons who think in a straight line. They have a passion, they have a desire, they just want to go get it done, and don't sort of take them through a rigmarole. I'm just trying to see if we can find a way to. I know we have to be careful. We can't just let people go in and start tear down a school. But what we cannot afford to do is to turn them off.
No, I agree with you, and I think that as you said, we have to streamline it, and we have to make it very, if not simple, uncomplicated, right, and not difficult. And I think, again, finding the right local partner, whether it's CVSS or whether it's Food for the Poor is another great partner. Maybe it's one of the private sector foundations that are out there. But we do also have this issue, and this was something that I'd experienced years ago quite regularly, where you would get donations that you couldn't really do very much with. Maybe it was technology, maybe it was computers. I don't know if you remember, Mr. Golding, in the 2000s when we would get, containers of computers donated to Jamaica, right?
Yes.
And these were all second-hand computers that, everything was outdated and you couldn't really do any. And the cost of upgrading the computers was prohibitory. You'd have to buy a new computer. You could buy a new computer for what it costs to upgrade. And so I think making sure that we can really provide that kind of advice and support to the diaspora, so that they know that what they're sending is something that's needed, or what it is they're coming to do is something that is very much needed in the country, and in a way that allows them to fulfill their objectives to themselves. Some of them will get donors. They themselves will have people that they have to report to and organizations that they have to report to. And then from here, making sure that we have a simple way. So I would recommend, for now, call CVSS, call the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, see what advice you get. But I would definitely say try to make sure that you're working with either a non-profit or a business to help you kind of frame that. And then the government obviously would come on as key partners for different components.
Before we go, can you let the listeners, both here and in New York, let the listeners know if they want to get in touch with CVSS, or if they want to get in touch with Jamaica Red Cross to contribute, to volunteer, how do they do it?
So they can email me at chair, CHAIR, at cvssja.org. We also have a website they can go on and have a look at, or info at cvssja.org. So chair at cvssja.org or info. And we'll get back to them.
Ms. Chung?
Straight away.
Red Cross?
The Red Cross has a website, www.jamaicaredcross.org. And so there is a section on there to say donations, or you can always get the Red Cross at 984-7860-876 before that.
Good. I want to thank both of you for coming on. You both represent two very, very important organizations. And I want to congratulate both of you for the tremendous work that you have been doing. Let's keep it up, and let's try and see if we can get some more people involved. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, and you keep up the great work.
Thank you very much.
We would like to thank you for having us.
Good, thank you so much.
Okay.
We're talking about volunteerism today. One of the most spectacular illustrations of voluntary effort is something called the Mustard Seed Communities. It's a charitable effort that was founded by Monsignor Gregory Ramkissoon. There's another one too, the Brothers of the Poor, that was founded by Father Richard Holong. Both of them are very similar, but they operate separately. We're going to be joined shortly by Monsignor Gregory Ramkissoon of the Mustard Seed Communities. But let me tell you something. I have been down there. I've been to more than one of his facilities. He has one just outside the Spanish Town. Of course, there's one down in Lower St. Andrew. The kind of work that he and his team do is amazing. It's inspiring. They are providing care for persons who, I don't know if anybody else would have been able to do it, to provide care. Persons with all sorts of disabilities and so on. And that's not the only work that they do. They do a lot of training, a lot of empowerment. It's really amazing. So let me stop trying to talk about it and bring on Father Ramkissoon himself, who has been so much of a visionary and a source of inspiration for this tremendous effort. Monsignor Ramkissoon, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Golding. As they call me, one time in Mustard Seed, Runku Soup.
Yeah.
They couldn't pronounce Ramkissoon, so they said it's Runku Soup.
Yeah, you come here, you bring them Trinidad name. Why don't name Jones or Brown?
I think I have to do that. Yeah, in my next life, I want to be a Jamaican.
How is Mustard Seed doing?
Well, Bruce, given everything, we are not doing badly at all. Well, in Jamaica, we are doing okay. We have a lot of problems in Nicaragua because of the Ortega government.
Yes. How many countries are you operating in now?
Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including Jamaica, 6.
Amazing. What are the other countries apart from Nicaragua?
All right. We call it Zimbabwe, then Malawi, then Dominican Republic, and we're just touching into now South Africa.
All right, tell me now, how much of the work you do depends on voluntary effort? I'm not talking now about the financing. That's another matter that we can talk about. But in terms of the actual physical effort, the care, the love, the looking after, how much of that is based on voluntary?
All right, let me tell you something. First of all, Bruce, almost 90% of our people in Jamaica, first of all, the ones that we employ, why we call them partly volunteer is they take not their full salary. They take a stipend. So that's the first thing. Jamaicans are amazing people. We have 500 people on a stipend or payroll. 2, volunteer in terms of the rest of the people who don't take any stipend or anything is probably about 50-60% of the work, if not 70. So day in, day out, this place is run by people who need it but don't take money.
Well, I have seen many of them at work at your place.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep asking, what is it that you entice them with? Salvation?
Well, I wish I could entice myself with that, but no, I tell you, and that's the local. The foreign volunteers. We have 100 groups before COVID came down. Each group 20 each, so nearly 2,000 people for the year come. Not up. In fact, more than that, I should tell you. Not only do they volunteer in building and caring, and so they help me. I tell them if they're coming to paint a wall, they must bring the money to buy the paint. If they're coming to help me fix a roof, they must bring the money to buy the zinc. And so, in a way, you could say we are run by volunteers. The enticement is I try to connect them totally with the Jamaican kids.
And what I noticed too, Gregory, is that because I've seen your volunteers at work, they come from uptown, downtown, midtown, roundtown, all over the place.
Yes. In fact, would you believe we have? I mean, I am talking people who checkbook means nothing to. In other words, they have more money than the checkbook could even potentially have. The thing is, but what is very surprising, not surprising, but very meaningful to me, we have a lot of volunteers who are themselves very poor. And it is amazing. May I give you a little story? One girl came in one day from Seaview Gardens, and she gave the girl downstairs a check. She said, I want to volunteer. We used to volunteer, but I can't volunteer anymore because, things hard and so on. She gave the girl a check. The girl said, no, we won't accept the check because you live in Seaview. No, tell father take it. Anyway, when I called the girl, she had been laid off from her job. She was volunteering here, but this woman was so amazing. She said, Father, I want you to take that check I got from being laid off and help the children. I said, no, sweetheart, in conscience, I can't take it. She said, no, I saw a kid there yesterday, and that child could do with a proper wheelchair. And that is a kind of I like to mesh the volunteers with the children themselves so that they become part ownership of what they intend to do.
Well, let me ask you this, Gregory. I mean, you've been in Jamaica for what now, 40 years?
I came first in 72, but I went for a few years to do graduate work in Boston. Yeah. So
Well, because I remember shortly after you came to Jamaica, you and I met. I was at the Ministry of Construction at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember that first meeting very well. But tell me, in that period of time that you have been doing this amazing mustard seed work, give me an assessment. Your ability to attract and mobilize volunteers. Now compared to, say, what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is it getting easier or is it getting more difficult?
Hey, well, I'll tell you something, Bruce. Because of COVID, of course, things got harder, but you wouldn't believe the waiting list we have because of COVID. They weren't able to make it for COVID. I'm telling you, I have to have one person full-time working with a team just to coordinate volunteer timetables. What is
driving it?
I tell you what. Well, first of all, is I think them, and I'm talking to some rich people now. They are bored with their life that's so predictable. They go in one thing, they don't have to worry about a thing in terms of material things, and they tend to feel that I want to give you for the American ones. When you apply to Harvard or Stanford or wherever you want, one of these big schools, the big thing right now in all of these for the younger people is they want to show that they're conscious of the things around them. You know what a big deal it is to write a letter to Harvard after send your GSAT and say, look, I've been involved with mustard seed in Jamaica or mustard seed in Dummer, one of these things, and they go back and they form a group to raise some funds, meaning the Harvard people and so on, they feel that this person is very much with their environment.
Gregory, bear with me. You have run a radio station, so you know how it goes. I have to take a commercial break.
Absolutely.
I'll come right back to you.
Absolutely.
Jamaica Live on Bridge 99, and we're talking volunteerism in Jamaica. And we've been talking online with Monsignor Gregory Ramkissoon, who is the founder of the mustard seed community. Gregory, for the benefit of those people, few though they may be,
Yeah.
who are unaware of the work that Mustard Seed does. Just give us an idea of the kind of programs that you're currently administering.
All right. First of all, we do 3 types of program called caring, sharing, and training. The caring program is for any child that is disabled, and I'm talking severe disability, that don't have a place to stay. So we look after those. Children with HIV/AIDS who were born that way but no parents or anything, again, we have those. And then teens who have nowhere to live but are pregnant and have nowhere to go. So that's the first set of caring things we do. Training is we have quite a bit of farming with inland fishing, vegetables, greenhousing, all this kind of stuff. In Monique, we have a huge farm with that kind of stuff on Jacob's Ladder and Jerusalem and so. And then ceramics so that we get ourselves some money, to carry ourselves. Then we have a cyber cafe so that we could 2 or 3 of those. And then, so those are the sort of materialistic things. Then we have Roots FM radio station. That's been going, just a community station for Kingston and St. Catherine. And then also now with the other activities we have in the other countries include things like feeding kids, especially on the river, the dump. So Nicaragua, while the government is checking on us, we are feeding about 600 kids on the dump. They live on the dump. Dominican Republic, as good as the tourism is there, right next to Puerto Plata, is Sosua, the dump. We feed kids. They grab the food from the trucks and so we go there and we feed them. And in Zimbabwe right now, bad problem, we feed 1,000 kids a day who live on the garbage. And Malawi, where they're looking after children with albinism, that is, the blood situation where they all look like yellow man. Well, if they catch those children, they kill them. And you could check it out, the veracity of this. They kill them and they sell the parts. So what we are trying to do is isolate them, care for them, try to get what they want, and probably move them across the border into Zimbabwe. So in a short way, and then we have schools. In Jamaica, we have basic schools for surrounding communities and feeding programs for surrounding communities. So in short, that is basically what we're doing in Jamaica. Yeah.
What would I'm almost afraid to ask you why we can't replicate Mustard Seed? Not you, but right across Jamaica. But let me put something else to you, which is where I think there is a need.
Yes.
There are some people who are very concerned that the voluntary spirit is not as strong, not as forthcoming as it used to be. Some years ago, I don't know if you recall, Professor Don Robotham gave the Grace Kennedy lecture on this very topic.
I was yes.
I just wondering whether or not, and the Mustard Seed experience, the Brothers of the Poor experience, the St. Patrick's Foundation experience. I was just wondering whether we couldn't set up a program where we could inspire, do some limited training, but to see whether or not we could rekindle that spirit at the community level. I'm not talking no big everlasting national something, but at the community level, if we could light a fire in the communities by getting hold of the community leadership, cranking them up, inspiring them, and getting them now to be trailblazers in terms of reigniting this whole spirit of voluntarism, whether or not that is something that we could draw on the tremendous effort and the tremendous success of Mustard Seed, for example, in mobilizing and coordinating.
Yeah, Bruce, I'm so happy you brought that up because the potential is there. In actuality, though, there are some things we could do. One, to me, and this is what we do with the American people, is and Jamaicans have it, but we just have to get people to get them involved, the school children first. So the first thing is, you see, when a little child, say 15, 20 years old, 15, 16 years old, come, that age level, they visit the homes or they visit your project, whatever volunteer project you want, and they see something and you give them something to take ownership, meaning say, hey, we want to clean this yard once a month. Could you guys from Gowan Pen Garden come and help us clean it? And the teacher said, yeah, go ahead. And if you do it well, we'll give you a little stupidness, something. What happened is, for Roots, for instance, we used to get a lot of the school children from the area. And do you believe some of them started at 12 and now they have children themselves. And although they can't make it because they have work, they send the children. The reason is, you see, I think that we need to start on a very simple level. Then the second thing is, you know what, the bad man and them like to do a lot if they see that something will totally change if they are present. For instance, do you know the amazing thing? We have a lot of men working in security and so on, all from the communities. Some of them are bad men, gunmen. When I tell them, look, fellas, I have 10 handicapped children, I have to get to hospital or whatever. Come on, man, you guys put a gun and I want you to help me with these children. I used to have children going on a truck, not a vehicle, like a bus. I had nothing like that. They would come, and let me tell you something. They will treat those children like eggs, and they will go and take them, and they will come back, Father, they don't want more help. I'm not saying some of them not some ruffians, but I think what we have to do is put the program in such a way that the people around us see. Now, I'm talking about inner city types. They see that there is something they can do. Simple as it is, even helping clean the school. You would amaze how many parents come here, basic school, and they clean up the school. They dust it out, they do whatever they have to do. No, the thing is, on the higher level, the upper St. Andrew level, and so, now, the same school thing, bring them in, say, look, you know what, for Christmas, we need to feed 5,000 people. You all go start raising funds. You'll be amazed to know how not only they raise funds, they come back and they bring the food for the people. That kind of thing. Ownership and relationship. Those are the two kind of ships I like to sail with.
Well, people listening to you may believe that you're talking gibberish, but I mean, I've seen it in action myself because I've been down to your place and I know that you have done it. I just think that it is something that perhaps we need to, sow a seed of that. In some other communities and get them to sort of build their own little version of mustard seed, because there's so much that can be done, there's so much that needs to be done.
Oh yeah, and you're funny enough, money is the second thing. I tell all my people, even when I employ somebody, let's say employment, I said the second thing I want is skill. The first thing I want is you buying into the need and the vision.
Yes.
Because and I tell you, Jamaicans are amazing people, They are the most generous people. Once they can get a relationship and they see that they are needed, they will turn water into wine.
Well,
and I have seen it.
That is what I see you doing, and I want to congratulate you. Monsignor Gregory Ramkissoon, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you.
Mustard seed is a beacon of hope and a testament to what voluntary effort and voluntary spirit can do. Thank you so much.
God bless you all. Right. Thank you again.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. I'm going to take an early sign off today because I do have a Thanksgiving service of a friend that I have to attend at 2 o'clock. So I crave your indulgence. But before I go, tomorrow is International Women's Day. I won't be here, but I just want to hail up all the women of Jamaica, our backbone. The real, sometimes unrecognized builders and heroes of our country. So to all the women in Jamaica, tomorrow, have a good day. And you remember that we respect and admire the tremendous role you have played in holding our nation together, in building our nation, in so much of the achievements that we have made. And tomorrow as well is the anniversary of the birth of one of our most beloved women, Lady Gladys Bustamante. So say happy birthday, even though she has left us. Happy birthday, Lady B. God bless you. See you next week.